Tally-ho, Joolz Guides here, in which I wander around London telling you fascinating facts. And today we're in Clapham North, but what we're going to do is we're going to take a trip from Clapham North down through Clapham Common and down to Battersea, because it's actually a little bit different this time, because I'm promoting my amazing new book, which is rather Splendid London Pub Walks. And the idea of it is that you start in a pub, you finish in a pub, and then you take in some pubs along the way. 18 glorious walks throughout the book, and so we're going to try one out now. I mean, we're going to start here at the railway, but how delightful that you already win points for spotting the stink pipe outside. I mean, it's a beautiful stink pipe, this one. In my last book, I've got the Joolz Guides Street Paraphernalia Challenge, and you get points for spotting things like stink pipes, which goes from the sewers and takes the smells out into the sky. But in the new book, there will be Joolz Guides Pub Paraphernalia Challenge. So it's all fun little things that you spot in pubs, which are growing more and more rare these days. And you get points for spotting them. Anyway, let's hope we can find some. Another thing in my book is there's a very useful list of rules, according to various friends of mine. And the rule of Simon states that pubs must accept dogs. And as luck would have it, this pub, come over here, this pub does accept dogs. And you can even take a little doggy selfie. Isn't that cute? And they'll put it on the wall.
Pubs must accept dogs.
That's the rule of Simon. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's a hard and fast rule. I don't necessarily agree with all these rules. Just sink this and we'll be on our way. Cheers. We've actually already done a video about Clapham, but it was quite a long time. It was actually what I would term or classify vintage Joolz. Do you remember? We did that, that was ages ago, and I didn't feel like I kind of quite covered it properly. Anyway, look, this is the Temperance Billiard Hall. This is quite a nice new sign actually, because that was the old one which they had covered up, because there used to be some solicitors here. I mean, this was built in 1910. Look, at 12 o'clock noon, they had 16 high-grade snooker tables in there, or billiard tables. These days it's luxury flats, but it just shows because how big the temperance movement was. But I mean, I think it started around the 18th century, because they had all these big, gin was a real problem in England. There was lots of people, like young people getting really drunk on gin, and they had to try and do something to reduce the amount people were drinking. So these temperance movements sprung up to encourage people to abstain. But anyway, it's a nice building, that, isn't it?
It is.
Luxury apartments. What a fabulous surprise. So anyway, I should point out that depending on when you're watching this video, you can order my book, my new book, or pre-order it by clicking the links in the text description below. Look at this lovely building here. I love the details on it. This used to be a bank, actually. I think it must have been a NatWest bank, actually, look. Although, I think that might be upside down.
It does look upside down.
I think that's an upside down version of the Nat from the days when this was a bank. But look at the effort they used to make in those days. These lovely details on the buildings.
And the other special thing about a building like this, it will have a vault. A safe.
Oh, I see.
Downstairs, won't there?
Yeah, I suppose so, yeah. Yeah. And you can see inside, actually. You can still see where it obviously was the cashier's desks. No, I won't go filming inside a solicitor. They'll certainly know how to sue me if they want to. But there's a lot of lovely old buildings along this. We're walking along Clapham High Street at the moment. Oh, look up there. Another ghost sign. There's a lot of ghost signs, by the way, on this walk. And you can actually go and do a ghost sign walk if you're interested in that sort of thing, but not with me. But look at that one, the old Gillette one up there. Look at this wonderful bomb shelter. These are the Clapham Deep shelters. They've got another one. It's got a twin over there. Like that's another entrance to the bomb shelter. And you've got quite a few of these around London. There's one in Belsize Park, there's one in Tottenham Court Road, and these were built in the Second World War. Life in the shelters was superior to being stuck on a tube platform, Joolz says. You actually got blankets and a lavatory. And war diaries mention people seeing their children walk for the first time. If people were prevented from entering because shelters were full, fights would break out. One man even attempted to kill his wife during the melee, claiming that she had just tripped over. It's quite amazing, really. Shouldn't laugh. It's quite extraordinary to think that after all the people arrived on the Empire Windrush from the West Indies after the war, a lot of them ended up staying down in these deep level shelters, and it's quite gloomy down there, I can tell you. They're really long, fascinating places. You can go on tours of them. Anyway, but not today. We're going this way. Some lovely old buildings along Clapham High Street. The one up here behind you, Simon, that says 1886 on it. Now, I think the ones over here, well, that's an Art Deco McDonald's. So something about an Art Deco McDonald's, which I quite like. Look, that's a lovely, 20s or 30s building. But see how the buildings are a lot more set back from the road than the shops. I suppose the road would have been a lot wider in the old days. You can just imagine with no cars, just horses, and it would have been much wider. But in these ones here is where Captain Cook's wife lived after he got killed in Hawaii, in Kealakekua. She hardly ever saw the fellow. I mean, it's quite sad, really, because he was always off at sea. And she ended up living here with her cousin, who was Rear Admiral Isaac Smith. He had accompanied Cook on some of his early voyages. He was the first European to have set foot in Australia, so they say. I don't know about you, Simon, I always find it quite sad when banks close down. So you can see up there it says Minster Bank Limited. You can just about make out that it used to be a NatWest, can't you?
Oh, yes.
This must be where the cash machines were.
Yes, that's right, yeah.
It's quite an old building. I expect it originally was a bank as well. I don't know. It's certainly quite a nice old building. I mean, obviously Clapham Common is a very thriving, cool area, and I can't cover everything here, so I'm kind of just sort of picking little bits here and there. But one pub, if you're really serious about your pub walk, you might want to pop into the Alexandra there. I rather like the little details above the windows next door. I was unable to find out who they are, those ladies, what they represent. So if anyone knows, let me know. See, originally the Alexandra was a hotel built in 1863, but I don't know what that dome was for on the top. I imagine that must have been part of the original hotel, which took in the whole two buildings either side. But not long afterwards, it became a pub. It still says luncheons and teas over the door, which is rather splendid. So I suppose, yeah, the buildings either side, that must still be remnants of the old hotel. I wonder if it's Queen Alexandra on the on the reliefs above the windows. Who knows?
You said earlier the interior is completely different.
Yeah, it's not the same on the inside at all anymore. It's all completely changed. But anyway, this isn't in the book because we can't stop at every single pub. So let's head down here towards the old town. This is known as the Lodge these days, but it was built back in 1868 as one of 20 or 30 newly formed Metropolitan London Fire Brigade, I think it was called. In those days, they would have had horses and carts coming out of here. These days, I think it's been converted into flats or someone's house. Nice place to live, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. I like this. They've got like a red car sitting outside. So, evokes a fire truck.
I can see why people like it around here. It really is very pleasant, especially here in the old town.
Very nice.
And since this is supposed to be a pub walk, well, you've got a choice. You can either come to the Rose and Crown or, what's that, the Sun over there. So I guess we'll give the Sun a go. Well, we've come into here. Unfortunately, there are no points on offer in this particular pub. No horse brasses to be seen, no pickled eggs. The book features various challenges. So if, for example, you spot a cat in the pub, or a dog, a pub pet, or a Victorian toilet, you score points. But I think my friend Tom would like it in here because there is a good selection of mass-produced European lager. The rule of Tom states that any pub must have at least one mass-produced European lager on tap. He can't stand those real kind of, what do you call them, craft ale places, which only have fancy craft ale.
Pubs should always have at least one premium continental lager on draft.
I think he'll be happy here. Cheers. Some lovely touches here. The old town, that's from the 1860s. That used to be a sort of general store. That's all. Those are originally from the general store. Those like honey pots or whatever they are there. Have you ever heard of the man on the Clapham Omnibus, Simon?
No, I haven't.
Really? Have you never used that phrase? You never? Oh, it's quite archaic these days, but people sort of, it's now kind of legal parlance if you're talking about, you know, what the average person would do. It was actually a phrase coined by Lord Bowie, a judge in the 19th century, to describe a hypothetical reasonable man against whose decisions someone's actions can be measured. And then finally, I think it was actually used in a courtroom in the early 20th century, and that's why people now start using it as kind of legal terminology, the man on the Clapham Omnibus. Just if you ever hear someone sort of talking about that, it's just like, well, look, what would the man on the Clapham Omnibus do? Well, he'd probably think it's perfectly reasonable to play music very loudly on his phone. I should hope not. And you've got these beautiful old 18th century houses here. Look at these. These are terrific. Number 43 there, that's where Vivienne Westwood lived. The godmother of punk, you know. She designed all those clothes that the Sex Pistols used to buy, like that famous Destroy shirt that Johnny Rotten used to wear. She had the shop over in King's Road, Sex or Seditionaries or whatever it was called. We went to it in our King's Road video, Simon. Speaking of the man on the Clapham Omnibus, this is the Omnibus Theatre. Look, it was actually built in 1889 as a library, but these days it's the Omnibus Theatre, and there's something very cool in the front. Let's go and have a look, because passing through Clapham used to be the Stane Street, which is this big long Roman road, and there's this really cool thing that they found outside someone's house on the other side there. It's just inside here. Now it's kind of hard to see, look. There's a kind of stone, and it's tough to make out what it says on here. Can you see that, Simon? This thing. It's kind of like a monument to the bloke who put it there. Look, believed to date from the 1st century AD. The Latin inscription reads, Vitus Licinius Asanius, to the spirits of the departed, and to Vitus Licinius Asanius, he made this for himself in his own lifetime. So he must have been a Roman citizen and a free man, because he had 3 names. If you were just a slave or something, like Spartacus, you just have 1 name. A bit like Brazilian football players. Romario, Ronaldo, Spartacus.
My name's Mariel. I'm Kat.
Excellent. Are you running this place?
This is the producer, and I'm the theatre administrator.
The theatre opened 10 years ago, and this is the old Clapham Library building.
Right.
So there was like a big campaign to save the building, and then it became an arts centre, and now it's theatre.
Excellent.
Some of our shows here, it used to be a library that really informs our identity as a theatre. We really focus on retelling stories and reimagining stories. We'll just give you a little peek.
Oh, is this the space?
This is our main space.
Oh, okay.
We're doing some tech work at the moment. It's our dark period.
That's quite nice. Anyone famous here?
Lots of people.
Yeah, who?
Phil Nye, most recently.
Joe Brand.
Yeah, so lots of friends and patrons of the space that really believe in our mission to bring a great fringe theatre to Clapham.
I used to tread the boards in my youth. What's he that wishes so? My cousin Westmoreland. No, dear cousin. If we are marked to die, we are enough to do our country loss. Oh, come on. Bro, I even got the words wrong. Oh, wow.
It's all about the conviction.
I know. I know I talked about this in my other Clapham Common video, but you can't leave these things out. I mean, this is a beautiful church from 1776. Holy Trinity Church, Clapham. It was here that they famously used to meet the Clapham sect, founded by John Venn, but also included William Wilberforce, who all contributed towards the Slave Trade Act in, when was that, 1806, and the eventual abolition of slavery. Inside these churches, I often expect an 18th century church to be a lot more elaborate and, I don't know, have more decor, but I suppose it makes sense that they wouldn't have that much. They always seem quite sparse and basic inside. It's amazing, you know. to think, they say Clapham, the word Clapham comes from Clop meaning hill and Ham meaning village, or hamlet I suppose. And back in the year 1100, there were only about 100 people living around here. It wasn't until later in the 17th century, more and more people arrived here to escape the Great Plague, because this was further outside London. They thought they'd be a lot more safe here. But so I suppose the time that this church was built, okay, there would be a few more people here, but I don't think it really kicked off until the early 19th century, when really much wealthier people started coming. They started building these big houses like we can see around the...
That house just sitting on its own there. Seems a bit sort of lonesome, doesn't it?
Yeah. I wonder if it was bigger originally and they actually cut it in half in order to make way for that road. And one of the people who lived here was Samuel Pepys. I mean, lots of famous people. Samuel Pepys used to live in this one. The famous diarist. Well, a house on this location anyway. That says King Edward VII on it, this one. Nice. It's like a real idyllic sort of scene, isn't it? Like a typically old English scene. Another stone. Doesn't look that vastly different from the one that Roman fella erected outside his house. You can't really see it very well, but this side, don't know if you can see that, it says V, so that's V, so that's 5 miles to the Standard in Cornhill. 5 miles from here to around where the Bank of England is, you know.
Oh, okay.
I like a good old milestone. Definitely get points for spotting a milestone. Let's just nip over the road over to there. I can most definitely recommend Joolz Guides' rather splendid London Pub Walks book. Now he says of this building here, actually that plaque there is of Edward Grieg, the famous composer, but you might find it more interesting, I don't know. This is what Joolz Guides has to say about it. It says, for a couple of decades, it was owned by Michael Joseph, the South African-born photographer who took the inner gatefold shot for the Rolling Stones' Beggar's Banquet album. Joseph hosted various racy photo shoots here, including one for an Ann Summers erotic lingerie catalogue, as well as filming for the Joy of Sex video. He did an orgy scene for a theatrical production of Spartacus, and also Kylie Minogue in the swimming pool there. So yes, so the joy. Do you remember the Joy of Sex, Simon? Joy of Sex. Maybe you never watched it. I never saw an episode of the Joy of Sex, but they were those kind of videos to help couples create great lovemaking. When they sold this place in 2012, it was they marketed it as being the sexiest house in London. I suppose some people might find the fact that Edward Grieg lived there more interesting than the fact that the Joy of Sex was filmed there. But I don't know, it all depends on your point of view. I got a very angry email from someone who took exception to the fact the amount that I was going on about Oliver Reed in my Wimbledon video. It's typical that we're stopping in a cafe on a pub walk, but I quite like the Pear Tree Cafe because this is where on the 6th of November 1966 that David Bowie was sitting in this very cafe. He woke up at midday and he was supposed to go for this photo shoot at the bandstand there on Clapham Common. You can see these photos on the internet, they're all there. And he felt a song coming on and he said to the photographer, I'll tell you what, I need a coffee. So he sat down here and the photographer went off for like sort of an hour or so. And when he came back, David Bowie had written one of the songs off his first album, which is called Join the Gang. Let me introduce you to the gang. Johnny plays a sitar, he's an existentialist. Once he had a name, now he plays our gang. You know that one? Anyway, apparently he had polished off 6 coffees, 5 fried eggs and some spaghetti on toast. This inspired him, so maybe if you're having some writer's block, you could come to this very cafe. It might inspire you. Viewers of my recent video about Sherlock Holmes, which I can highly recommend, might be pleased to see that this bench is in honour of Jeremy Brett, many people's favourite Sherlock Holmes. His love, laughter and immense courage in the face of adversity inspires us all. He was the most eccentric of the Holmeses, wasn't he? He was always, Watson, there isn't a moment to lose. Oh, I was just feeling a little bit nostalgic. I just thought I'd point out this pond, which is the venue of my cigarettes advert that I did. I was in a magazine. It was years ago when I used to do my character modelling. And I'm sitting in a boat here, and I've got my arm around this huge packet of cigarettes whilst my wife is rowing the boat looking very grumpy and annoyed about me sort of looking so in love with the cigarettes. And it was right in the middle there. One of the first jobs I did. Do you reckon this used to be one of the ponds? There was a few ponds. There's got quite a lot of ponds on Clapham Common before. They filled a lot of them in. One of them is pleasingly named Cock Pond, which is now a paddling pool, amazingly. But there's a few others. That looks like it could have been one of them. What do you reckon?
It does, yeah.
Maybe it's just, or maybe it's just somewhere where the fair's been in town or something. We're just wandering down Broomwood Road here. But you see, what I like is that you get points for this, spotting the coal hole covers. So most people have coal hole covers on the pavement, don't they? But a lot of the ones along here, they've got them on the front porch. Each one is slightly different. They've got the name on them, Camberwell, that one, Clapham and Camberwell. They've all got different designs on them, and they state the name of the foundry or whatever where they made them, and look at all this. They've all got this lovely detail, the nice tiling on the what do you call that bit, the entrance, the porch, whatever you call that area there, you know, that lovely tiling. And they're just very beautiful houses, aren't they, down here? The little doorbell, the old style doorbell.
Oh, yeah.
Can you see that?
You see it, and they don't all have that, do they?
No,
It's still got
it's
the
lovely.
doorbell, yeah.
On the corner of Wroughton Road, this is the house where William Wilberforce used to live. It was a previous incarnation of it. I mean, I think they've flattened it now. But if you look down this hill, can you see the way that the road dips down into a valley here? There's a hill, and it goes all the way down and then up again. And then running along the bottom there is what, used to be the Falconbrook River. I mean, that got culverted into a sewer sometime in the 19th century. But consistent with my theory about these underground rivers, if we look around the corner in Webb's Road here, let's go and have a quick look. Double points here, because you've got a stink pipe next to the old street sign as well, where it says Webb's Road SW. After 1917, they started writing SW11. Funny looking thing. I mean, I wonder if people notice it where they go past, but yeah, that will be because of the Falconbrook River. I think, that's my theory anyway, which has been turned into a sewer underneath. It says T.J. George Ironmonger, Battersea. Time for another pint, I think, Simon. The Eagle Ale House has the honour of being the first London pub to be featured on the cover of the UK-wide Good Beer Guide in 2015. Excellent, cheers. Well, there are points to be had in this pub because they've got these excellent pint glasses, which so you definitely get points for spotting these old-fashioned, traditional dimpled pint mugs. And, well, I like to award points for pub carpets, actually. This is more of a rug than a carpet, really, but I don't know, still counts, I suppose. So this is Northcote Road, and I think it more or less follows the route of the Falconbrook River, which used to, probably goes underneath here. And these days, it's what you might describe as reassuringly expensive. So I think because of this rather middle-class, safe feeling you get around here, it's sort of often referred to as the Nappy Valley. I think got some rather nice things down here, like, look, Northcote Road Antiques Market. I might have to go and have a little look around in here. I think this is quite cute. Now, if you're a bit more cool and young, hip and better looking than me, you can go to Northcote Records. They have bands, nightclub type venue sort of thing. But we, since we are on a pub walk, we're going to go to the Northcote, which is over here. This is probably for the horse and cart to come through. Maybe it was even a stage post, I doubt it. But you know, in 1881, this pub actually was in the census. The publican was recorded as being Spencer Chaplin. And the barman was recorded as being one Charles Chaplin, and Charles Chaplin was Charlie Chaplin's dad, Charles Chaplin Senior, and the Spencer Chaplin was Charlie Chaplin's uncle. They used to run this pub back in the 1880s. Don't forget to watch my amazing video featuring Charlie Chaplin's grandchildren, where we walk all the way around London and talk all about the places where their grandfather frequented. That's got Spencer Chaplin in it as well, but his grandson as opposed to his uncle. Anyway, let's go in. Cheers. Quite like the fact that they've got this vintage car here. It looks like the kind of thing James Bond might have. Well, actually, it's not quite fast enough, but in the 70s, this building here behind where Marks and Spencer's is, this is where the MI5 used to get their cars sort of souped up with surveillance equipment and stuff like that. I mean, the KGB found out about it in the end, they had to move. But yeah, they used to, it's kind of like Q Branch in a way. They'd add all these fancy things to the cars. This street is called Lavender Sweep. I don't know of any other streets with the word sweep in them, unless it's in the first part. Lavender Sweep, it's quite cool. And it's obviously named after, well, I mean, Lavender Hill is over there, but Lavender Sweep was originally one of the 4 mansions which was around here in the 19th century. This was just a kind of carriage drive serving these 4 mansions, one of which, the Lavender Sweep one, was occupied by Tom Taylor. He was the editor of Punch. And all these various people used to come and visit him there, like Charles Dickens and William Thackeray and Lewis Carroll, all these famous authors. But something is quite interesting here, outside number 85. But I don't know if you can make out on the wall here. See if you can zoom in. Can you see there? It says sand on the wall. See, it says S-A-N-D. On the wall, very faint. It says faintly it's written sand. That's because this is left over from the Second World War. It was an indication to the fire wardens where they can go and pick up sand to put out fires and stuff like that during the Second World War. It's amazing that sort of remnant has remained there. I think it's quite cool. And just here at number 84, I mean, the only part of the original house there, the Lavender Sweep mansion house that survives, is this funny little. You see this fan light here? It's called a fan light, the bit above the door. That's the only bit that survives. I don't know where the mansion house was, but they've restored it and they've just preserved it there. And John Betjeman has a nice poem about Lavender Sweep. He says, Lavender Sweep is drowned in Wandsworth, drowned in jessamine up to the neck. Beetles sway upon bending grass leagues, shoulder level to Tooting Beck. I guess it was probably looked a bit different in those days. Did I mention my book? Very highly recommended. Don't forget to follow the links where you can pre-order it, if it's not out yet, depending on when you're actually watching this video. Let's go this way. We're on Lavender Hill now, as in the Lavender Hill mob. I don't know if you saw that. We talked about it in the video about Ealing, when we were in the Ealing, went inside the Ealing studios. They filmed it all there. Anyway, the library there, that's got an excellent reference section. A lot of the research I did for this video came from that library. Anyway, before the railways arrived in 1838 or whatever, lavender was widely cultivated around here. All these houses hadn't sprung up yet. Queen Elizabeth I, she used to have lavender sort of scattered around in front of her and used to carry posies of lavender in order to ward off plague and things like that. And later on, Queen Victoria, most people have mint sauce with their lamb, but she preferred lavender jelly. And up until 1930s even, most well-to-do ladies wouldn't have been seen without a flask of lavender about their person when travelling abroad. We're down Mossbury road here. And the only thing that survives from those days is a house down here. Look, most of the buildings from the 1800s have been knocked down and replaced. But one that survives, I think it's called the Chestnuts, this one. It's obscured by bushes at the moment, so I'll cut to a shot that I did in the winter time. It's kind of a weird, if you look at it from above, it's at a sort of slightly jaunty angle to the rest of the buildings, and it's an old villa from the early 1800s. It survives just next to the pottery here. I don't know why they knocked them all down, but apparently the gardens in Battersea were described as being amongst the best cultivated and the most fruitful. And now it's somewhat hidden, that really. Arding and Hobbs here, that was built in 1876, and when it was first built, that was the biggest department store in South London, I believe. Anyway, they had this big fire back in 1919 and they had to rebuild quite a bit of it, but it still retained some of the lovely Art Deco features inside, and now it's no longer a department store. They've turned it into a whole bunch of other things. They got a very nice delicatessen around the side, though, I must say. At the Clapham Grand, which is a little bit further up the hill over there, that was opened in 1900. People like Dan Leno, Charlie Chaplin, loads of famous musical artists performed there. I think Wetherspoons tried to purchase it, because Wetherspoons pubs, they're always buying these massive buildings. They tried to turn it into a pub, but they didn't manage to acquire it. And so now it's still sort of nightclub. But anyway, we're going here to the Falcon. Since this is a pub walk, what better place to finish than the Falcon, which is conveniently situated on the banks of the Falcon Brook River, where it used to be. It's just near Clapham Junction station these days. On the sign, they've got the Falcon there. That's the coat of arms of the Bolingbroke Viscounts who owned the manor of Battersea back in the 17th and 18th centuries. It actually was very popular with undertakers back in the old days, because it was on the way back from the cemetery or something. A lot of people used to stop off here for a drink. And rather pleasingly, the landlord's name was Robert Death. So there's even the famous painting by Robert Nixon called Drinking at Death's Door, of all these, I think it's undertakers or people sort of just dancing and drinking outside the pub by the banks of the river. They actually had to install outdoor lighting, especially because all these drunk people kept sort of drinking in here and falling into the river. Anyway, let's hope that fate doesn't await us. Cheers, Simon. Cheers, everybody. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button if you like the videos, and also don't forget to purchase Joolz Guides' rather splendid London Pub Walks. That's got over 100 pubs in it. You can hit the links below. It may not be out yet, depending on when you're watching this video, but you can certainly pre-order it. 18 walks in which I wander from pub to pub and talk about all the fascinating, interesting stuff in between, as well as some of the cool stuff inside the pubs. See you next time.